The following program is dedicated to generations of Mid-Michigan families who recognize WKAR TV as an essential community resource through their continued financial support.
Well, I think too many people forgot the past.
If you're happy and you have a good time when you're a child, you're going to remember it.
Life was simple those days.
Those were the days, of course, when little girls wore hats and ladies did too, and white gloves when they went out.
I think it's a part of human nature. I think everybody is nostalgic.
I think one of the things in everybody's life is they ought to know of what other people have experienced.
I'm willing to share what I remember because I know it was great.
As an individual, you have these memories and you kind of want them to be continued. You don't want people to forget about it because it was so special.
Downtown was really a wonderful place. Very safe, very clean. It had all the stores, it had all the theaters, had kinds of fun shops that we enjoyed going to. We could actually walk there if we needed to.
Downtown was downtown. Downtown was a place that you could go and enjoy yourself.
Everything was downtown. The theaters were downtown. The professions were downtown, the physicians, the dentists, the insurance offices, real estate offices, the attorneys were all there, as well as the retail stores. And so it was a very active community both day and evening.
On Saturdays, especially shopping days, everybody went downtown, and there were just people all around you everywhere.
Every time we would go downtown, there would be hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of people milling the streets, walking in from shop to shop. Downtown was where it was happening.
Always Saturday was the big shopping day, not for just us, but everyone shopped on Saturday.
My sister and I would always save our money on Saturday. We could go downtown and go shopping. We'd get to go shopping at Neisner's and Jupiter's or Kresge's or Grant's or some of those, you know, and just spent the whole day buying all our bargains we could find.
Saturday morning, I'd go by myself, do my shopping while my husband take care of my children. And I will go and have breakfast downtown in a restaurant that was right on the corner, and it was Senate Grill.
You'd end up at the Broadway having a Coney Island hot dog at the Broadway.
And they serve it with onions and mustard, and we used to go there a lot to get those big Coney dogs.
But so many of those little restaurants in downtown, they were all unique in their own little way.
Mostly, we went to the home dairy because almost all the shopping for the food was done there.
People would shop there, do their grocery shopping, and take it home no matter where they lived.
Some of the things that you couldn't find at just a plain market, you could go to home dairy and they would have them.
We used to have meetings upstairs. They had a meeting room that they allowed the community to meet in.
And then they had a cafeteria upstairs.
The home dairy was the place where everybody went for lunch.
People used to line up there to wait their turn to grab a stool at the counter there at noon.
We were terribly busy. The people were 4 or 5 deep waiting at the counter to be waited on.
I guess liking sweets as much as I do, I think that's the part that probably sticks in my mind, or the goodies that they had.
Mostly, we went to those places where kids congregate. In those days, it was Walgreens or Rousers.
Rousers, another wonderful place. And it's still, I just love that building. I hope they never tear it down. They had a great soda fountain and served lunches. And for a quarter, you could go in and get a very nice lunch. You also could get a prescription filled.
Kewpie's made the best burgers in town.
Everybody went to Kewpie's, a little white metal building there.
They were in the middle of the 100 block on Shiawassee.
It was a very popular spot for all of the young people.
Cars would be lined up way into Washington Avenue.
My favorite place that's no longer downtown would be the old Capitol Lounge. The little hole in the wall, the fun that was generated out of there was magnificent.
There was a store called Sans Souci's, and I love that store because it was expensive.
I like to go to Style Shop for better quality clothing.
The Style Shop. I'd go there on my lunch hour and always had things in layaway and pay a little on them every week. They got all my money.
I like to go into Lansing Dry Goods. I love to go in there and just listen. They put their money in little silver things, and they'd go all the way across the store and up, and I'd just stand there watching and listen to the bells ringing, and it was just everybody was bustling around. It was just a happy place.
They didn't have the cashiers. The cashiers set up on the mezzanine, and they had those pneumatic tubes that they would put in the slot, and they would be skirting all around the store with those pneumatic tubes, and then they would come back with the change in them. And you would hear a cling, ding as they would be transported.
You would see many people who were just making it, would be in King's buying their clothes. And when you'd be out in company with them, they say, yeah, I got my coat from King's, or I got my suit from King's. It was a letter, a name that we identified in our community. I speak in our community, in the primary minority community.
My favorite place is not there anymore. It would have to be Walgreens. It had the big pictured window, and everybody could just walk past and see you, and we would love to sit right in front of the window. So we could see everybody that goes past and knock on the window at people. Here I am. It's fun.
The Penny's building, they had an escalator there that I remember someone telling me it was the first escalator in the United States. I don't know if I believe it or not, but it was sure archaic compared to the escalators now. But it was great, and it was something special, and I remember my mother taking me down to the Penny's building specifically to ride the escalator, and that was kind of neat.
The good things that I remember is just being able to window shop.
Go downtown and do window shopping on Sunday nights. All the stores were they had displays and they changed them regularly.
It was a place when you started out in the middle of the town and you'd start walking down Washington Avenue. It was exciting to start at the very end of town and walk all the way through it, because there was something going on everywhere, and it was busy, and people were laughing, and I think it was just awesome, really.
Lake Lansing to me over the past years was when I was a kid, youngster, they used to, our Sunday school at Collins, it's now Trinity, AME Church used to have all their Sunday school picnics with other churches in Lansing, and we'd go out there and have a Sunday school picnic. And that to me was one of the highlights of my youth.
I remember Lake Lansing Amusement Park probably best because when we were kids, every year at the State Journal, the local paper, they take all us paper boys out there for a picnic.
We take the children out there in a big merry-go-round. Yes, it was, and there was a streetcar ran all the way from downtown, trolley car all the way through East Lansing, and out to Lake Lansing.
That was about 10 miles out there, and it was almost like going out in the country.
Oh, the food out at Lake Lansing Park was your typical hot dogs and cotton candy and popcorn, and I remember getting sick on the hot dogs because we ate too many of them. Prices were like 10 cents for a hot dog, and this is really dating me, you know.
I think that was one of the first places I had French fries with vinegar on them.
I would drive all the way to Lake Lansing to buy French fries.
We had a beautiful grove for picnics. A lot of reunions were held there, and the kids around Hazlitt really shared good because everything was put out free, like ox roast and all kinds of roast, you know, chickens and this sort of thing.
They had tickets for us to ride the roller coaster and the Ferris wheel and the dodgems. Oh, the dodgems were fun.
When I was a college student, I did go out to the Lake Lansing amusement park, and I thoroughly enjoyed that because they really did have a roller coaster ride that was out on the shore of Lake Lansing.
That it seemed enormous. It was white wood, and probably my memory now is it was rather rickety even then.
It was a well-built coaster and a very thrilling coaster. Everybody loved it because of the dips.
That first dip, you couldn't help yourself from sitting down. You just found yourself standing up.
I was all right until that operator would hang me up in the top up there and let me sit and look down on people. Then I became fearful.
One time when I was on the Ferris wheel, I was at the top, and I'm not really great with rides, and I upchucked from the top of the Ferris wheel right down into whoever was down there. And obviously I pointed to my sister who was riding with me and said it was her, but I don't know if anyone believed that.
And that was a fun ride. And there was a tree right close to that ride, and there was a sail on the plane that you could guide it with, and it always felt like you were going to hit that tree. Always. Of course, you weren't, but it sure felt like you were going to go right into that tree every time you went around. It was a very special merry-go-round. I don't know the history of it, but I do remember reading in later years that it was quite a famous carousel, that the horses were very valuable, and we didn't realize, of course, at the time that it was valuable. It was just a beautiful big merry-go-round.
We'd go down to the lakeside, and on occasion, there'd be somebody down there say, "You want to ride in a boat?" And they'd take us a speeding boat out, take out around. That was rather interesting, exciting, because I never had boats, you know.
We had 2 speedboats. I think one was a Chris Craft and one was a Eddie Aquafold. And they were nice-looking boats, all mahogany hull.
Then they'd take us on a boat ride out into Lake Lansing, and right out in the middle of Lake Lansing was a house on stilts. And there wasn't anyone living in it, but I understand that during Prohibition this was sort of a blind pig, and they had some pretty wild parties out there. Slow the boat down, we could almost touch the steps on the fence around it. And then we'd come back, and they let it, and we swam at the beach there.
A lot of memories there. because when I stand there, I just want to cry.
Well, there aren't any theaters around anymore, but the one that you probably would remember the most is the Michigan.
The Michigan was a newer theater. It was almost, the arcade part was almost a predecessor to on a small scale to our malls today, because it was all enclosed. And they had they had shoe stores in there, and they had millinery stores, and they had a basement there, and they had a bowling alley there, Strand bowling alleys.
A long foyer, the lobby that they had, and how you went back to the rear of that huge arcade, and to get to the theater, and it was kind of a nice place to just get in, because it wasn't just a show, a theater. I mean, going into it and all the ads and things that they would have displayed all along the foyer. Were just nice things to see.
Well, the thing then was to be very elaborate. So on the ceiling of the Michigan Theater and on the sidewalls toward the stage, there would be very intricate decorations, plastered forms and so forth. They were painted, and well, not gaudily, but so that you could they really stood out.
And they remodeled it. And I remember, and when it reopened, a friend of mine got to work for the State Journal, got to see it the opening night. They just invited certain people. And I asked him what he thought of it. He said it looked like the painters got drunk and threw paint at each other.
And then they had the old pipe organ down there, which is a true pipe. It was on a lift, so that you would push a button or do something to make the hydraulic lift, bring it right up, so it could be concealed down below the level, so that you could not see it from the stage or from the house. It would come up to the level, so that usually they came out playing also. And then they would suddenly appear, they put lights on it, and when they got done, they would either go on to another piece or just dim the lights and sink out of sight. Then you go on to the show.
They would play the organ on Sunday nights before the 7 o'clock and the 9 o'clock show, and the organ would raise from the floor. Larry Faubert was the organist, and people would come, and he'd probably give a 15-minute recital before the movie.
I can remember going to the movies at the Michigan Theater and waiting around the block, lines around the block to get in to see a production. Saturday afternoons, all the theaters had matinees, and they would all be probably 60–70% full.
It was a beautiful theater. You had a nice walk down the arcade. You could look in all the shop windows in the arcade. Go in the balcony with your date on Saturday night, and always look around to see who was with who, so you knew who had a date with who. And if it was a special date, he would buy you a praline at the Karmacorn shop before you went into the theater.
I was in college, and we had gone to the theater, about 2 or 3 of us, and we kept hearing sirens, because these sirens going off, and we're watching the movie, and I can't tell you what it was, but I have a real love for movies, and I'll go to almost anything that moves. And we kept hearing these sirens, and I thought, oh boy, there is a fire. It's terrible, because they just kept going and going. We got out of the the show, and we walked out into the center of Lansing, and it was packed with people because it was VJ Day. It was August 14th. That was very exciting to mingle with all those people that had come downtown. I didn't see any sailors kissing nurses like they did in Times Square, but it was equally as exciting.
Always had kids for usherettes, usually high school girls. Always had uniforms so that you could identify who they were. And they were fairly well trained, especially to Michigan. They didn't stand ahead of an aisle and say this way. They would take them personally, take them down, place them in a seat. That tension got a lot of people said, well, it made them very happy. They were being served. That's one thing these days they don't even think of, but that was different back in those days.
The Michigan especially had a balcony where my buddies who were dating would take their dates, and they would always say they made out at the Michigan Theater, up in the balcony. Well, I never got so lucky, and I still regret the fact that that never happened to me.
It was special because it was large, it was beautiful on the inside, and of course they always had the first run movies. But it was like the place to be.
But it was a deluxe type operation, that's what I'm trying to get at. It wasn't just throw it on the screen if you want to come, okay. No, no, no. They enticed you to come in, and it worked.
I wanted to skate so badly that I would have done anything to get to the ice arena.
I look forward to any time I could go over to the rink.
It was just some place that everybody accumulated to skate and have fun.
People came from quite a few different states to skate there. And some weekends, half the state would be from Chicago.
They could come in and take over the ice and free skate whichever way they wanted to skate. And no one ever seemed to get hurt. I've never seen very many accidents. I've seen more in Munn than I've seen over in Dem Hall in all those years.
I think I skated up to lean on the boards, and somebody hadn't hooked the gate, and I went sailing right through. And I think I bruised every bone in my body.
The ice surface in Dem Hall was wonderful.
It wasn't too hard, it wasn't too soft.
It was just the quality of when you started to move across the ice and the way your skates felt when they moved in it. It just felt good.
It was the best ice I've ever skated on.
I used to work for a man in the administration building, and he was a very strong sports fan of Michigan State. And one night he was at one of the hockey games, and he heard two people talking behind him during the time that they were resurfacing. And the one person asked the other person, what are they putting down on the ice? And the person responded that it was hot wax. And of course, we thought that was pretty funny. Hot wax on the surface. I joined the Friday Afternoon Ladies Figure Skating Club about 1954 or the winter of 55. That was a very social group. We used to skate from 12 to 2 in the afternoon. And then we had coffee and cookies afterwards. Somebody always brought cookies. When I was president, I had them make up a cookie book because everybody was asking, you know, who made those cookies? And then I want the recipe, I want the recipe. So we just made up a booklet of recipes for the cookies that people brought. Maybe 56, 57, I joined the Lansing Skating Club. It took me a while to meet the people who were involved with both groups. And that's when they started saying, you know, oh, why don't you come out on Monday night and skate with us too? And well, you know, that's all right. And so it became Monday and Friday. And then, of course, eventually you had to try to work in another day. And eventually it worked into almost every day. Every night I was doing something at the rink.
At Old M Hall, we had the ice lots of times from as soon as the public was over. And John Duncan would do us another flood, and we skated right through the whole night.
One of the pros would rent the ice. It would start at 10 or 11, 12 o'clock, whenever he could get it, and it would just go on into 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And we all shared the cost, which was not that much then compared to what it is now.
So we skated nearly every night. We'd do exercises all the way up and down that rink. I would have 20 kids up one end of the rink. They'd have to go on 1 foot all the way down and stay on that foot, turn around on it, and go all the way back. 1 foot.
A lot of those people are still friends today, and a lot of them you see occasionally. Like, go out to dinner someplace, and all of a sudden you look across the room and, oh, I remember her, you know, she used to skate, or he was in our skating club.
Dem Hall was always 55 or 50 out on the ice. And I've been in mud where I can't get to the middle of the ice without going back and get my coat.
We would skate from, I think it was like September until March. And then everything stopped, and they would take the ice down and do any repair work they needed to do. When you went in there in the summertime when the ice wasn't down, it had a very strange, musty, damp feeling. You know, it wasn't crisp and cool like it was when the ice was down.
I don't ever remember the rink at Dem ever having anything wrong with it until the flood. And then the water filled right up to the bottom of the floor of the ice surface. And then the ice went like this.
They had the hockey games, and they had intramural hockey.
There was the figure skating class and the hockey class on at the same time. We had to split the rink in half. We put a rope at the far end of Demonstration Hall, and I remember giving a lot of patch lessons to Gary Clark and Joey Heckert and maybe 100 other little kids, and Emil would be down at this end with his hockey team. They didn't use pucks, fortunately, like they do. I think they do now.
They had ice shows that the skating clubs put on. They used to have broomball games, and they had some curling at one time.
I remember the balcony. The big high ceilings. Woo, they were really high.
Back then, we didn't have very big crowds, for one thing. And if you didn't sit along the floor surface, there were seats that went all the way around, and you had to go up into the balcony. You had to sit in about the first 3 rows of the balcony, because if you sat beyond that, you either had to stand up or you could only see half the ice. And if you were up high enough, even if you stood up, you wouldn't be able to see the entire ice surface. And so lots of times you could hear a lot of banging going on, and people were screaming, and you didn't know what was going on, you know, until they started to move out from the place that you could see them again. It was the same with the ice shows. I remember watching a show with Carol Heiss one time, and I got there too late, and I was sitting way, way up. And I remember watching her doing a spin, and all I could see was her shadow moving around. And I had to wait until she started going up the other end of the ice before I could see her again. That's a good lesson, though. You did that maybe once, and after that, you were sure to get there when the doors opened. As an individual, you have these memories, and you kind of want them to be continued. You don't want people to forget about it because it was so special.
When you went there, it always seemed like you could smell the perfume department the first thing you went in, because that was right there by the door. We would always go in on Washtenaw.
J.W. Knapp's was the biggest department store downtown. You'd walk in the door and I can still smell it. I mean, it's a smell that would always be with you. It was a great smell, a smell of, I don't know how you would describe it, happiness, I guess.
Always smelled nice, and it always looked nice, and they had very nice clothes and shoes, and it was a department store. You could go up to the 3rd or 4th floor and it'd be all full of furniture.
Well, the building was a very Art Deco building. I really never appreciated it until some design professor out here at Michigan State started sending his students down to get the history, because it was being taught as one of the outstanding Art Deco buildings in the United States.
The exterior is so Art Deco, it's just, I mean, it's gorgeous. And with the cream and blue exterior and the overhang over the front door that was there on the corner of Washington, well, it's still there on the corner of Washington and Washtenaw, where they would have the flags.
The outside was yellow and blue, big tiles. You could see it for a long distance, down the street.
Yes, and there was a divided opinion in town at the time as to whether people liked it or not. It was a little too modern for them, and they thought it took away from the other old architecture in Lansing.
And in fact, it's I think on the National Register now.
I thought it looked great.
Professor Pleatway shows you how to sleep blissfully in Pleatway pajamas. Adjustable waistband, underarm pleat, balloon seat. See them at the Pleatway Sleep Clinic, only at Knapp's department store.
Knapp's only had 5 floors, but it was the quality that they had and the service that they would give to people.
Their merchandise was nice, the courtesy that you got as a customer. You don't find that in a mall store.
I would say that it was the spirit of the people. Someone said not long ago that it was like a family.
And I think that customers coming in month after month, year after year, seeing the same salespeople behind the counters or in the department made them feel like they were being greeted by friends.
There's work to do in 42, in the store, at the office, at the plant. Father's a busy man. Let's show him that we understand and appreciate him. Shop at Knapp's department store.
Knapp's could furnish you with almost anything from your wedding attire to things for your youngsters.
Well, Knapp's had a little bit of everything. They'd have bargain sales in the basement. That's one thing Knapp's would have. And you could always go in the basement and probably get something that you'd found later on up above that was down in the basement at the sales bargain sales. You could go through all the different floors up and down the elevator, and they had just a lot of quality things. And they had little bookstores, you could buy books.
We would go down to Knapp's to buy Nancy Drew Mysteries whenever the newest version would come out. And you know, you could read a Nancy Drew in 1 week, and so like maybe every Saturday we'd get to go down to Knapp's, and that was a big treat to get a book down there at the bookstore.
The jewelry, of course, I love jewelry, most women do. So that was a fun department.
Shoes, I remember quite often buying shoes, high heel shoes for work.
It was one of the things that you did if you stayed downtown any length of time, was to have lunch at Knapp's.
Their pies were wonderful. And one of my favorite things at Knapp's for lunch was cream cheese and olive sandwich. It sounds terrible, but it was delicious.
Knapp's used to have so many floors where you can find everything there, from dressing to furniture and linen and whatever is necessary for a home.
From pots and pans to screws in the hardware department to sporting goods to appliances, housewares, stationery, needles, thread, yarns.
They didn't have cars, but just about everything else.
Let Knapp's show you how to take it easy with the Sunbeam Rain King. The best sprinkler made, it's automatic.
I remember some of the events that they had. That was one way that they were ahead of their time in retailing, because retailers now count that a big part of their promotions. They always have something going on, you know, and Knapp's did too.
It was called old-fashioned bargain days, and to inspire the employees, and as also fun for the customers. We would ask our employees to dress up.
Every one of us in the store wore an old-fashioned outfit.
But those were fun. And then back at the store, we would have a Tin Pan Alley type of piano player on the main floor playing all the old songs.
But that's the thing that made the sales so great.
I dreamed I was a designing woman in my maiden form bra. Bras from $1.95 to $10.95. Join the fashion show, only at Knapp's Department Store.
It was a wonderful store at Christmas time. It was like going to a reunion. You saw everyone you know, and everyone was busy and bustling. It was a very, very busy place, but yet it was a wonderful place. Their windows were beautiful.
Knapp's in those days, for example, Knapp's department store at Christmas time, the elevators were so full you couldn't get an elevator, and you would go to the stairway and the stairways would be full of people.
I have a picture of my son with Santa. Believe me, I brought him back for many years, and then lots of other children with him. Santa was the epitome of giving to the community. He just was such a gracious person that the children would line up to talk to him and truly believed he was Santa. And we parents did too.
It meant a lot in that it was a family occasion. It was the beginning of a tradition, because as long as Knapp's was in existence and they did their window displays at Christmas time, it didn't matter how old we were, we would go down at Christmas time to see what the windows looked like.
Knapp's was a very special place. It was just a fun place to be.
WKAR TV's production of Things Not Here Anymore was made possible with the annual financial support of viewers like you.